Looking to stock up on high quality Ayurvedic herbs? I've partnered with two of my trusted sources, Kerala Ayurveda and Gary and Son, to offer you 20% off their entire range of authentic products. From classical formulas to single herbs and seasonal must haves, these are staples I use in my own practice. Use code Ojas Oasis for Kerala Ayurveda, Ojas Oasis 20 for Gary and Son. Links are in the show notes. Supporting your healing journey just got a little bit easier. In Ayurveda, nourishment isn't only about what we take in for the body, but also what we offer the heart. That's why we're honored to share Aura Cacao, a ceremonial grade cacao we've chosen as a dharmic partner for the Ojas Oasis community. Aura Cacao supports meditation, heart-opening rituals, and moments of conscious presence. As an exclusive gift for our listeners, use Ojas Oasis 20 for 20% off, and you'll find the link in the show notes. Welcome to Ojas Oasis, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets the modern being. I'm your host, Sasha Brzezinski, Ayurvedic doctor and guide on this journey into the heart of holistic wellness. In Ayurveda, sex is not taboo. It is one of the 3 pillars of life, alongside food and sleep. When honored consciously, sexual energy builds vitality, creativity, immunity, and longevity. But when overstimulated or misused, it depletes ojas, our most refined vital essence, responsible for resilience, radiance, and spiritual strength. In today's hypersexualized digital culture, pornography has become one of the most powerful yet unspoken forces shaping modern intimacy. While often normalized, porn addiction is quietly limiting men's emotional depth, nervous system regulation, spiritual connection, and capacity for embodied, conscious sex. But the impact doesn't stop there. It affects women, relationships, and the collective field of intimacy, pulling us out of embodiment and into reenactment. Instead of experiencing sacred sexuality as a living, breathing current of life force energy, many couples find themselves unconsciously replaying scripts learned from screens. Performance replaces presence. Stimulation replaces sensation. Disconnection replaces devotion. In this powerful episode, I sit down with Ben Timby, transformational coach, spiritual guide, and founder of Men's Sexual Mastery. Drawing from tantric and Taoist sexual alchemy practices, along with modern behavioral neuroscience and psychology, Ben guides men in reclaiming their sexual energy as a sacred force for healing, vitality, and spiritual awakening. We explore how reclaiming sexual energy as life force rather than consumption restores vitality, strengthens relationships, and creates a healthier template of intimacy for future generations. If you've ever felt the quiet grief of what intimacy could be, if you've sensed that sexual energy holds untapped spiritual power, if you believe that healing men's sexuality is central to healing our culture, this episode is for you. Let's get to our chat. So you think that I fit right into Austin is where we were just talking about how I just moved here from Chicago. And now I'm like, I literally just landed and I just set up all my equipment, my podcast equipment, getting all my herbal medicines into the clinic. It's just been such an incredible community effort to really get me here and land. And what you were just saying about how you felt like I fit in here feels, not only does it like feel so heartwarming to hear that from somebody and to be seen in that way, like pretty much immediately right off the bat, but also it's also very affirming to what I'm feeling about the community here. And I just love it here so much. I feel like it was waiting for me in so many ways. So thank you.
Yeah, you've got that very, as I said, that very like Midwest, like Americana, I don't know, just salt of the earth vibe about you, just in my initial impressions. And my partner speaks really highly of interacting with you as well. And this town is full of a lot of different renegades and entrepreneurs and like good old fashioned American values and the meeting of many different worlds. And so, yeah, I sense that what you're bringing is going to be very welcome here and already is. So I'm happy you're here.
Thank you, Ben. And your partner spoke very highly of you as well. And that's really kind of how we landed here today on this Friday morning at 11:08, which is a very sacred number. I don't see any coincidences as being random in this universe. I really do feel like the stars aligned for us to have this conversation today. And I was telling you right before we hit the record button that sacred sexuality is something, first of all, hopefully by now our listeners have heard me say enough times that sex and sexual health and healthy management of sexual energy is one of the three pillars of health in Ayurveda. So there's digestion, there's sleep, and then there's sex. Those are the three pillars upon which all of our health really rests and really depends on. And so it has been almost 4 years of the show. I have been wanting to talk about this for so long, and it just I haven't come across the person that I really wanted to get into this with. But again, you came so highly recommended from not only your partner, but my neighbor and friend, Nick. So that was like two. I'm like, okay, I got the message. I got, sort of like when it's like this undeniable, there's like an undeniability that you're supposed to do something. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out this. Like literally, I was up last night late figuring out how to set up the space to get this ready for you this morning, and it's all good. I mean, it's just, yeah, like you figure it out when it's something that deep down is just really supposed to happen. And right off the bat, meeting with you and connecting with you, and I'm going to see you later, I think, right, at somebody's birthday party.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I think
That's
I'm going to see
tonight.
I'm going
Yeah.
to we're going to be partying and dancing
Yeah,
later.
we'll pick
Yeah.
up the thread on anything that gets unfinished in this conversation. We can record we can do tonight.
I love
Yeah.
that. Oh my gosh. Well, Ben, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your grace and flexibility and availability to be present with me pretty much within like I don't know, a 36-hour notice of wanting you on the show. I feel very not only grateful for but very blessed to have crossed paths with you because I've already begun to look into your work and the things that you do, and I also asked Nick a bit about your work as well last night, and it's just beautiful work. So thank you for doing what you're doing, first of all.
Thank you, Sasha. Thanks for seeing me, and yeah, it's an honor to be here. And I'm excited to cross pollinate. Share these codes around sacred sexuality as much as I can, and also hear the Ayurvedic perspective and some of the links there could be to this because I haven't dove very deep into Ayurveda before, so that's kind of new for me. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. All right. So the theme today, of course, is going to be men's sexual mastery. This is what you teach. And particularly like what's standing out to me. This has been something that's been on my mind for a long time around the very prevalent porn addiction. We're just going
Mhm.
to get right into it. Just going to cut straight through into the nitty-gritty of this because this is very prevalent. And there's no shame around it because of its prevalence. It's almost like normal at this point. It's become
Mhm.
very normalized.
Mhm.
So I would love to begin with defining the problem. Why is this a problem? Why is porn
Mhm.
actually not allowing men to fully experience the fullness of their sexuality, not only the fullness, but like the healthy intimacy, the healthy pleasure of sexuality.
Yeah. No, it's a great place to start, right in the deep end. Let's go.
Right?
I'm,
I know.
I'm
I don't, this is just how I roll.
I'm curious, really quick, before I begin, and just for context, are you in a relationship or are you single?
I'm single.
Okay. And is pornography something that's shown up with previous partners, or have you been connected with men who have opened up around some of these issues with porn before?
Pretty much every partner that I've had has not had I wouldn't say a porn addiction, but that was just part of their routine before they entered relationship with me. But before me, I know that that's something that pretty much all of them were regularly indulging. I don't know if I want to say indulging or just practicing,
Hmm.
part of their lifestyle, kind of.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing. Just for context, like we can make it a little more personal with, relating it to you as a woman and how you've interacted with men. And I think, in my experience, like for a lot of women, I mean, there's women have their own journey with their sexuality, and to get to where you are, to really open up to that level of being in your own sexuality, owning it in that beautiful way. But for men, there's this very outward sexual energy right out the gate. Men get turned on very easily through visual stimulus. So, with pornography in particular, from a very young age, many of us are programmed by that, both men and women. But I would say men, by and large, men usually are the ones who have it gets a lot deeper. They get more hooked into it because it can be so stimulating, so arousing, and then as soon as they start, masturbating and ejaculating to that at a young age, it's creating neural pathways and programming of how that energy moves in their body. And combining that with, some of the physiological responses, the nervous system responses, the breath, the where the mind is, the very outward goal oriented approach to sexuality, which is to get to ejaculation. And then you combine that with all the acting that's happening and the very masculine approach to sexuality that's shown in pornography. And a lot of men can come into relationship with a programming they don't even know is running in the background, which is the only sex ed they've really had. So for us men to get outside of those patterns and those programs to actually show up in a way that can meet our partner in her waters, in her depth, it's a process for many of us men to unwind those patterns, to release the attachment to ejaculation, even, which for many men they they're so resistant to that. They don't even they can't imagine what would be beyond that, or that there could be something so much more fulfilling and pleasurable beyond that. But there is a depth of connection, I would say, that exists in us in relationship when we can move beyond the programming of porn, which can be really limiting for a lot of guys.
It's so interesting. You said there's a very masculine approach to sex in porn. Can we define what is a masculine approach to sex?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, again, I'm not saying that this is bad, just to be totally clear. This is just, there's a spectrum of sexuality. There's like masculine, feminine, there's outward, there's inward, there's, all these polarities in nature, there's hot and cold, yin and yang. So you could also call it like a very yang approach. It's very outward. It's focused on reaching a goal, which is very masculine, which is ejaculation or orgasm. And even the act itself, you could say, like, what it's going towards is like an outward explosion of the energy through an ejaculation. So that would be the best way do you know what I mean by that?
Absolutely. And I think it goes both ways. I honestly think that porn, I mean, not to change I know we're focused on men's sexuality today, but because we're talking about porn, obviously there's the relationship with women, the kind of like this performative aspect of sex where it feels that men are also trying to prove something to the woman
Hmm.
versus exploring her and connecting with
Hmm.
her. There's like also this outward, like you were saying, masculine desire to have her reach orgasm, not through connection and an attunement, but through, oh, I'm good enough at this that I can make you do that if I
Hmm.
want you to, right? Which is a power play and not in a healthy way. Cause I think there's a lot of ways to play with power that can be very healthy, very fun,
Yeah.
playful, consensual. And then there are some that are just very unconscious and feels like kind of like junk food. It's just, there's no actual substance in it. And yeah, I think that there's so many places we could go with defining the problem of why we need more sex ed. We just need more sex ed, especially with men, because men are the container of the experience. Or I should say, the masculine is the container, right? And then
Mhm.
women, when we feel safe, we obviously soften within that container, and then so much magic can happen. Women also need to really feel safe, and I don't think that the porn model is doing it for us. I don't think it's. I could speak for myself, and I could probably speak for most women
Yeah.
that that gets old real fast. That whole
The
look at
porn
me and
reenactment.
yeah, the porn
Yeah.
reenactment.
Yeah, and for a lot of
Mm,
men, I think, I mean, there are other, just to like jump ahead a little further to like and
yeah.
reverse engineer like what it is that's the why here, and like especially for men, but yes, it's connected to women, of course, it's connected to relationships. Like in our organization, we say that our mission actually, and this isn't on the website directly, but I love saying that we're here in service to the children waiting to be born into families where men are integrated sexually, and they're the fire keepers of intimacy. And if you imagine the family's like a house, sexuality is like the hearth. It's like the fire that's kept, that warms the entire house from the inside out. Like when mother and father are united and having deep, deep levels of intimacy, which don't need to necessarily always involve penetration, of course. You can get into all the spectrum of intimacy, but that is felt by everyone around them. That's the glue that holds the relationship together. It brings relationship fulfillment, and even connected to the pillars you were talking about earlier, it brings vitality. We say like the well fucked man, the well fucked woman carries this magnetism. They go out in the world, they're creating, it's like amplifying, and this is the nature of sexual energy in traditional Chinese medicine and in Taoist practices, which is that's the lineage I trained under, is Montauk Chia. And they teach that sexual energy is an accelerant, like it'll bind and amplify. It's like fire, and fire can burn down the house, or it can cook a meal, it can warm the house. So ultimately, our mission here is to help men show up as fire tenders so that they can actually get what they really want deep down, which is not this cheap junk food fix from porn, or this very like forceful approach to sexuality, like what you said, gets really old. The porn reenactment and like the frustration that can happen in relationships and families eventually being torn apart as a man is, doesn't have the proper tools and containment and understanding of his own sexual energy as a gift, and how to channel that fire. Like that can lead to relationships falling apart and families falling apart. So ultimately, we're here to serve the future generations of humanity, especially in an age when AI is taking over. Like AI girlfriends, like pornography is like coming to a whole
Man.
new level. And like, especially for men who are so drawn out in that energy sexually, and can end up leaking it and dispersing it without knowing it, and then having like nothing left to give, not having that overflowing cup like you're talking about as a woman. Like when we as men can show up knowing how to contain and circulate and build this energy in a very pleasurable way, and come to our female partners overflowing instead of grabbing, and needing and extracting from her. Like this is like a really, really old pattern, but when we can break these ancestral patterns, I truly believe we're like setting the timelines for the future of humanity, the future of our higher selves, and like who we really came here to be. So I know that's very very broad, but like I just wanted to drop that as like kind of where where I'm coming from, with just to give a full spectrum of like what this work is about for men and how it can impact relationships.
Feeling drained, stressed, or stuck in old patterns? Panchakarma is Ayurveda's ultimate reset, clearing toxins, balancing your doshas, and restoring your vitality from the inside out. At Soham Healing Resort, every detail is designed for your transformation. Personalized therapies, nourishing meals, and deep rest in a serene sanctuary. As an Ojas Oasis listener, you'll receive $500 off your Panchakarma retreat with code OJASOASIS PK2025. These retreats book quickly and often far in advance, so don't wait to reserve your place today. Visit sohamhealing.com/panchakarma, and you'll also find the link and code waiting for you in the show notes. when the topic of sex comes up, a lot of people contract. They don't know which way you're going to take it, because I think a lot of people honestly have a lot of shame around their sexuality, whether they want to admit it or not. And as an Ayurvedic doctor, I have to talk about everything with people. I have to ask them very intimate questions about, similar probably to what you talk with your male clients and students about. And we have to get to the root of, where is this shame coming from? Who taught this to us? This is the absolute most primordial aspect of our existence. We all come from this. Without this, there is nothing. And it's the same kind of thing with the taboo topic of death. I was just talking to somebody else the other day about, why is there so much shadow around death, sex, money, just the things that, like, they're so, these are quintessential ingredients of our humanity. And I think that by actually being on this show talking about this right now, whoever's listening to this, normalizing it begins with conversation. Just
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and the validation around how normal it is, first of all, to feel like, no, I don't have that much education around sacred sexuality, or I don't know how to manage or master this energy within me. So a lot of people don't even know what that energy is, where it comes from. So, and being, you said, you articulated it so beautifully, a fire tender. Ah, so in the Ayurvedic lens, so fire is Agni. It's called Agni in Ayurveda, and it's very powerful. It's the transformer, the alchemizer. Without fire, things don't get digested, first of all. Experiences don't get digested. We're unable to actually understand concepts, because information just comes in. But if we can't assimilate that information and then actually apply that knowledge to our own experience, that, by the way, that's all having to do with our Agni, our fire. And so I think that I also want to mention really quick that men, that the masculine energy, I should say, is within women as well. And also the feminine energy is also within men. So I often feel, I have a lot of male friends, a lot of male platonic friends. And I feel like a lot of them struggle with pressure, the pressure to be the leader, and the pressure to, yeah, embody that, like, strong masculine. And maybe that's not always how they're feeling every day. Maybe sometimes they are feeling a little bit more like they would love to be more receptive and receive a bit more. And maybe women can take more initiative, and it doesn't have to be men always 24/7. This is what you have to be. And translating that into the bedroom, I think, yeah, I think I want to encourage women to also just step into that place of, we can also, I think, lead that experience as well, which I think would take some of the stress off of men that they're feeling all the time, to be the provider and the protector. And it's amazing, and I love it so much. And then sometimes I do often see that, the weariness behind the eyes of a lot of men, of just like, oh my gosh, I've been holding it together for so long, and I kind of do just want, like, you tell me how you want it. You know what I mean? Like, you take control, and you go for it, girl, instead of us always looking to men to be like, throw me around, put me against the wall, do this, do that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know if you also talk to your clients and your students about this, but taking turns, I think. And again, every couple's different, but I just think the openness to that is important, to exploring each of the roles, the masculine and the feminine role in sexuality. And we can actually start getting more detailed too with what I don't know how far you want to, because we're on air. It's like, what do we want to go into? Do we want to, like, start talking about
Mm-hmm.
actual practices that you teach? Do you
Yeah.
feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to give just a basic outline of what this looks like for men and women and in relationship. I mean, we could start with that entry point of what you were just talking about, of, what I like to say is kind of like the polarity or the attunement, building that field between two partners. And just for anyone who's new to this, if you hold two magnets together, this is my favorite analogy, and they're the same pole, they repel each other, right? But if you flip that magnet around, the negative and the positive pull together, and you bring them close, but you don't let them touch, you can feel that pull. And you could say that's what we're doing kind of in this role playing of masculine and feminine. And, even in, the Tao and a lot of these teachings, they talk about the yin masculine and the yang feminine, which is what you were describing, and which is the yin yang. There's like the little black and the white and the white and the black. And this is really, it's a nuanced topic. It's a paradox, and it's a moment by moment, just to speak to like that specific dynamic, leadership as men, or, women stepping into leadership in the bedroom and dancing in that way. Just to drop like a really practical tip or a tool for anyone tuning in, especially for men. I know with my partner, I've been, there's always, I mean, the learning never ends. You're the feminine. I love to say like the feminine is like the water that fills up the cup. Like we're the containment. We're playing this role of being the men who are taking the leadership, and she's slowly filling up our cup, and she's finding all the holes. She's finding all the leaks. She's spilling over and showing us where we can grow. So first and foremost, like removing pressure to get anywhere, and like just having a foundation of safety in your relationship emotionally, where everything can be talked about, things can be explored. We always say like we have to stumble as we learn to walk. We're like babies, and like since a lot of us never learned proper dynamics of sexuality, or even for many men, they don't know anything about like the female orgasm. It's just this mystery. I mean, a lot of guys don't even know like how to locate the clitoris. It like blows my mind, and the clitoris has so much fixation in, the modern world, but there's actually like so many more layers of, the female pleasure map that go beyond just the clitoris, and like the fixation on hitting the button all the time, there. So I would say that just removing the pressure from yourself, first of all, allow yourself to stumble and play around and figure it out, and having a space where you can talk with your partner openly and communicate about these things is really helpful. But when it does come into the space of leadership and bringing that masculine pull, it's almost inseparable for us as men to be like very conscious and maybe even self-conscious about how well we're directing her. But to me, this is like where a meditation practice can actually really help us. Like we as men knowing how to regulate our nervous systems and drop out of our minds and into our bodies, that's how we connect to the feminine. And that's the yin masculine, you could say. It's like this soft, guided point of the spear that's like attuning oneself to the moment and getting into that flow state. And then noticing the subtle reactions of our partner, noticing when you go in for a certain type of touch or a kiss, or even just eye gazing, like starting very much on the outside, very, very light, and not following the porn conditioning of just like straight in there. We do the thing. She sucks my dick. I lick her pussy. We go into it. I ejaculate, but actually like tuning into the nuance of the moment, really slowing down and allowing what we call the sexual simmer, which is like this very gradual buildup of the energy with flirtation, with all the ways that you're holding your partner and creating safety outside of the sexual act is all going to build up that energy so that, she's actually open in that moment. And then as you're staying in your body, as you're breathing through those moments, releasing any objective or performance and just really being with her and playing with her body's reactions to the different things you're trying, and not slipping into stories of rejection when she might tense up or close, and just continuing to allow this flow state. I do think to tie it all back together, I do think like men having a meditation practice and a practice of knowing how to get into their breath and get out of the loops of their head in day-to-day life and get into the body and be present and release the past, release the future. We often say how we show up in the bedroom is how we show up in the world, and vice versa. So this is a very, this is very nuanced, and it's also like very broad, like how these patterns of and the quality of our presence as men are going to make a drastic effect on the quality of our sex and our lovemaking. in our intimacy. So that's what I would offer for guys who are approaching that dynamic within relationship of polarity and leadership.
And I just want to say, you just said the quality of our sex, which then leads to the quality of our life, the quality of our ojas, which is our
Mhm.
vitality. You said the word vitality. That's what ojas means, or the meaning of ojas, I should say. Ojas is also your immunity to stress, your immune system. You're building resilience. So sexuality and having a partner where you feel safe enough to do that dance that you were talking about, the polarity dance of
Mhm.
dropping into the body and attuning, and not so much, it's not a playbook. There's no playbook. Like, you were just oral sex and then a couple, let's do like the three positions we do, and then all right, on to the next thing. People rush through, I think, also practically speaking, Ben, because I think that a lot of people are so busy. They almost feel like this is something that is just kind of a necessity. People, I think a lot of men, please correct me if I'm wrong. I just, what I've come to learn about men's sexuality is that, like, it's kind of just a maintenance thing where they feel like they just have to ejaculate every day in order to just be able to focus and get through their day
Mhm.
and get through their job and not be thinking about sex every 5 seconds.
Mhm.
So some men are just like, all right, let's get it done, move on to the next thing, get to work, gotta go. And this also speaks to the bigger cultural problem that
Mhm.
we are just so, we're a very anxious society, and it's difficult for a lot of people to be present
Mhm.
with sex. I think it's kind of just on the list of to-dos, like doing laundry,
Mhm.
cleaning your house, like taking a shower, going to the bathroom, brushing your teeth. All right, let's have an orgasm, get going. And when you work with your groups and your retreats and your workshops, I would love to ask you, like, if that's a very common thing. And also, like, when you're working with men who are new to meditation, because you're working with men to help them master their sexual energy. Where do you begin to teach them, like, what are the actual breathing exercises? How long are they sitting?
Mhm.
Is it in the morning, so that they don't go into that default mode of, okay, I'm going to like watch some porn really quick, ejaculate, shower, get to work? How do we like stop that pattern, or like begin rewiring the
Mhm.
brain?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really great question. Do you know the Buckminster Fuller quote? It's like we don't fix a broken system by trying to fix what's already broken, like fixing a problem. We don't focus on that. We instead
Mm.
we build a new system that renders the old system obsolete. Like we build something that outperforms what's not serving. So for a lot of guys, a frame we use is like we're kind of updating our sexual software, if you will. Like you're not broken, there's nothing wrong. This is just an opportunity for you to have more pleasure, more fulfillment. And the rewiring process, you could say, begins with, I mean, simply put, like semen retention is step one for guys. And I know there can be a lot of resistance, like for guys even listening to this, to that. But I would tell you, like, do a little research on your own. Like if you go down some YouTube rabbit holes and you see what a lot of high level entrepreneurs are doing. I mean, Dave Asprey talks pretty openly about this, like biooptimizers. The science isn't around it yet, but I guarantee you, like we just had a podcast about a month ago with a testosterone optimization expert who was saying that in his personal anecdotal evidence in his own life and working with hundreds of men, he thinks that semen retention has a significant correlation to testosterone levels, which, by the way, are like the lowest they've been in modern history right now. And there's not to get down that rabbit hole, but like, and the statistics show like people are having less sex than ever. Men are having lower libido than ever, like performance issues, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. All of this stuff is really on the rise. And, the first step I tell every guy is starting with just basic semen retention for just try it for a couple days, and as you ease your patterns into like being able to go a week, being able to go 2 weeks, especially by day 21, you're really going to notice the shifts that start happening. And this is something that's also known in like MMA fighting worlds, like a lot of the, yeah, like the human optimization, as I mentioned before big fights, guys know not to have an ejaculation. Olympic athletes, like male Olympic athletes, know this. It's like kind of discussed behind closed doors, but you're going to notice you have more focus, you have more, your testosterone, I would say, is higher anecdotally. Like, again, we're waiting on the science on that. You're going to have more drive, you're going to have more creativity, you're going to have more energy. A lot of people use this for their business building. This was mentioned in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. He talks about sexual transmutation, which is this. And then again, when you get into the bedroom, it's going to heighten your sensations so that you can experience more pleasure with less stimulation. And you can start to meet your partner in more of the feminine sexual energy that allows her to go deeper. And as we mentioned, when you get rid of any objective and you're just entering the bedroom, and you as a man are getting a lot more pleasure from her touch or from touching her, or for, not just needing to go for straight penetrative sex, it's going to warm up your partner to allow her to experience deeper levels of pleasure and potential orgasms. And then when you're both riding those energies together, it's incredibly generative, and I would say, so if you're a man practicing semen retention and still having sex, when you're having sex, it can further amplify your energy, which then you can bring out into the world. So the biggest thing I would say beyond semen retention, the next step is really, as guys are building up this energy, of course, blue balls is a real thing. And a lot of guys, that's like their first question every time. Like, well, what am I going to do about blue balls? And blue balls are a sign of the energy not being circulated. And this is where we never had the
Mhm.
tools or the education. So if we were to get into that, I'd say again, the nature of sexual energy is that it's an accelerant. It's going to build up the energy like fire. So anything that's happening inside of you is going to be amplified by this energy. And I'd say this even gets down into like a psychological level too. Like if you're having a lot of cognitive dissonance, if you don't have trust in yourself to like hold discipline to contain yourself, that's going to be exposed, and it's going to get uncomfortable. So that's why a lot of guys ejaculate all the time, because they're either feeling depressed or anxious, or they're tired, or their sexual desires are actually not being met, I would actually say. And many of them deep down feel really sexually unfulfilled, but they're not getting it from their partner because that fire's long gone out because they didn't know how to tend it. And so they're turning to porn, but that's just depleting them more. They're feeling more empty, more hollow. And I'd say, as guys come into, holding their sexual energy, it's going to reveal these areas, and it's going to be really uncomfortable in the beginning. So as and that's why we have our community. That's why we have other men, and we have men's circles. And really what we do in our organization is combine a lot of these teachings with accountability and meeting up in men's circles. So we have daily check-ins with our brothers as they're implementing these practices, as they're learning how to shift, and move that sexual energy again that can build up in blue balls and build up in tension and build up in all these other ways. They also have the support, because this can bring up a lot of things to the surface that have been either numbed or repressed in the past. So that's a bit of a disclaimer, but again, I want to like focus on the practices themselves. There's like so much to talk about in all
I
of this.
know. We're going to have to do more of these. This could be like a
Yeah.
series. This is like the opening act,
Yeah.
I should say. Like, let's just start because, yeah, this is a very deep topic.
Mhm.
Sex is a very important aspect of life. It is deep. It is,
Mhm.
it's not just physical. Like, nothing is obviously, and most people know that. Some don't, but it's very emotional. It's
Mhm.
also very it's also very spiritual.
Yeah, and that's, when you mentioned this topic today being sacred sexuality, like many of us had never even put those two words together. Like everything we associate with sexuality is like porn, which is like, for most of us, depending on your programming, that's like the opposite of the sacred. At least it was for me, coming from like a very conservative Christian background. So what happens when we merge the sacred and the sexual, the spiritual and the earthly, you know. That's really what the alchemy is. And yeah, I mean, I do agree. Like there's so much here, and especially, and we're talking in the frame of men, but I'm trying to continue to link it to how this impacts relationships with women, and I want to give tools and resources as well for women who are listening, you know, for their men to get started. I would say, you know, beyond practicing semen retention, and as it builds up, again, they can start having blue balls. I'll give just some tiny little nuggets of like just really easy, quick tips. But like this work is like internal martial arts for men, we call it. You know, like it takes consistent daily practice for men to accumulate and build and circulate this energy throughout their body to open up these subtle new neural pathways of pleasure. It takes doing the reps, just like working out, there's working in. And we as men, because of this conditioning, because these neural pathways that were formed at a young age through looking at porn and chronic ejaculation, it takes a lot of effort in the beginning to move the energy and begin to tune into the subtle and not get caught into that track towards the finish line of ejaculation. Again, there's no shame in ejaculation. Like you can do that, but you will notice when you practice holding on to this energy, it's going to benefit you in so many ways. And so, yeah, as you're building this energy, when you're in partnership, if you're having sex and practicing semen retention, just a quick tool to get you by if you're having blue balls is actually what we call a testicular massage, like massaging your balls, actually. And you can just grab them and gently massage them in a circular way. I like to say, like massaging grapes, juicing grapes gently. Again, full disclosure or disclaimer, like don't do this if there's any pain or without consulting your health professional, but just very gently, just massaging your balls. This helps move some of the energy it's taught. And if you combine this just with deep breathing, deep down into your pelvic floor, and you can do this during sex as well, big breaths so that you know, if you're listening and you like place your hands just below your belly button and you breathe in and you allow your hands to expand on that inhale and relax the body on the exhale. Let the shoulders soften. Staying in that kind of a breath while you're massaging your balls and also during sex is going to be really helpful for you, allowing that energy to just naturally move. Because ultimately, the ejaculatory orgasm is a sympathetic nervous system response. You know, as men, when we go into that, we're clenching, our shoulders are tightening, our breath is getting super shallow and high up in the lungs, and we clench, and then we have that big release. So what we're doing is, you know, when we're coming up to those thresholds of pleasure, which we say, you know, if you're at like a 7 or 8 out of 10, if 10 is the point of no return, we say 7 or 8 is just great. Like try to keep it at that level, and when you notice you're coming up, getting beyond that point, closer to an ejaculation, and this can be with a partner or this can be in your own personal self-pleasure practice repatterning your nervous system by bringing in this breath, big breaths into the belly, exhaling. You can make a sigh. The sigh really helps with vagal toning, and all of this is going to help men drop into their parasympathetic state. And the more we do this, as the intensity builds, as we learn to actually relax into the pleasure. And by the way, this can apply very much to women as well. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. But when we all can do that and we get rid of that sympathetic tightening, which is very much related to the porn, right? It's like we're narrow focus, we're going somewhere, we're tight, we're pushing. When we can actually breathe deep and allow our bodies to relax as that pleasure comes up, that's when we can start to experience different sensations. You know, men can actually have non-ejaculatory orgasms. They can separate orgasm and ejaculation. Sometimes that can happen very immediately, just using what I'm talking about, just relaxing, breathing deep, staying in a parasympathetic state while you're having sex. Like that could be a very basic step one. For most men, it takes, you know, a lot more than that. And there's a lot more practices. Again, there's like hundreds of practices I could give. But at MSM, which is our organization, we have like a step-by-step we call it like a habit stacking, a modular approach, where guys are, again, training in this internal martial arts. You would start just with that breath I explained, breathing deep into the belly, exhaling with a sigh, like as you're being stimulated. And then we start to bring in Kegels, if you're familiar with
Mm-hmm.
Kegels, and then reverse Kegels, which are lesser known. And from there, we can start to stack more and more and more and more practices. And again, I don't want to go too deep into, because I could talk all day, but like that's a place to get started. Yeah.
I love all this. It's just it's such a relief for me to be able to talk about this with a man, first of all, because initially when I was thinking I was going to have someone on to talk about sacred sexuality, I actually already, there's a woman, Brooke, who's going to come on next month. We're going to talk about tantric yoga, tantric sex, and just explore the topic of pleasure as a whole. But I'm so glad that I'm able to explore this with such an embodied masculine teacher that is really like, first of all, knowing your intention and your the bija, this, or sorry, I should say the sankalpa, your intention with your organization. You called it an organization. I'm guessing it's men's
Mhm.
sexual mastery, right? That's the
Yeah, it's like
organization.
a community, a brotherhood.
Brotherhood. So that is powerful. It's a really powerful angle. You're talking about keeping families together, tending the fire of something much bigger than just sex, which is, it's like that which binds. There's so many Ayurvedic concepts that I could introduce as to why this is holistically so sound and so grounded and rooted, and why it is an inevitable success, because where there's a need and where there's a pure intention, when those meet, the karma is ripe. Like, there's a ripeness to what you're doing. There's such a need for it right now more than ever, and it's the same with Ayurveda. And what you were saying earlier about, I mean, saying so many interesting things, gosh. But yeah, it's how we show up in the bedroom is how we show up in life. That was one of the nuggets that was really landing. It's still landing. I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time. Long, 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 long time. Profound, simple
Mhm.
but profound.
Yeah. Even
Simplicity is
the
genius.
even the breathing I talked about, like, and I'm sure you talk about the breath, I imagine, a lot in your work. It's the foundation, it's the connection of all these lineages, all these technologies, all these practices, like coming into that deep breathing down into our root, all the way up the spine, like, and carrying that energy into our day-to-day life as if we're making love with life itself. Like, we're not fighting it, we're not battling it, we're just the same, and our partner is going to show up as our mirror to how we are in that way in our day-to-day life. Exactly. So, like, we just say our partners are our mirrors, showing us how we're turning up for ourselves, for our own internal experience, our own internal feminine, and for the world around us. Like, are we able to lead that space, from a grounded, loving, compassionate, in a good way, and breathing on behalf of the room. And David Data talks a lot about that too. But, like, yeah, there is this big correlation between, like, in the bedroom, out of the bedroom, practicing these states, getting into the flow state, getting into the meditative state, getting out of our heads and into our bodies, which is a muscle that takes time to be built. This isn't like an instant. I can't just tell you like a quick tip on like a podcast
Yeah.
or a piece of content and like you're going to
Yeah.
be all good.
Uh-huh.
This is really, really deep work that really goes to the root of it all, is what we like to say. So yeah, it's all of it.
And I will say libido, because as you're talking about making love to life, I'm like, I make love to life every second. I really do. I know that might sound nuts, but like I am pouring my fullness into my friendships, the people that I care about, my neighbors, my family, my work, my patients, my students, the podcast, everything.
Sasha, would you say when you're having high quality sex with a man who knows how to meet you in your depths, is giving that fullness, do you notice that it's increased
Yes.
your ability to do everything you're doing?
Yes. And it's so rare, though. What
Mm-hmm.
you just said is so rare. I've had very little of that in my sexual life, which has been a bummer. I'm like, but it's okay. I mean, yeah, I think when you are just, very steeped in this knowledge, you can go, your capacity is very deep and very wide. And so, of course, yeah, I think I'm probably, I've also, my priorities haven't been partnership for the last year and a half. I was finishing school. I was on an 8-year epic, journey to becoming an Ayurvedic doctor. So it was like relationships weren't my primary. I didn't have the space really to
Mm-hmm.
attract, I think, the type of man who would meet my polarity in a very long
Mm-hmm.
term type of way. And now I am. So that's an interesting place to be where I'm like, oh, now I'm like ready for this. Let's go.
I'll keep my eyes peeled for you. I'll
Oh,
let you
thank you.
know. I was
Thank you
gonna
very
say
much.
though, just to highlight that though, for men listening in, just hearing it from a woman that like you have touched those moments though, right? Where
I have,
like
yeah.
you walk out into the world, and this is the same experience for a man. It goes both ways. When we're having this high quality sex, when the hearth is being tended to, when the fire is burning bright, people feel it all around us, and like everything is just amplified in our life. The birds are singing, this is very like
You look
stereotypical.
very
You get
well fucked, Ben. You do. You do.
yeah,
And I know
thanks a lot.
Taylor is amazing. So, and yeah, so congrats.
I know.
I
Well,
am genuinely very happy for you
you
guys.
also look well fucked, even though it sounds
Even
like
though
you're
I'm,
single right now, but you're doing that to yourself, right? You're
I
learning to
am.
bring that energy to yourself. And that's what's at the core of all of this is this vitality and this life force is the understanding of our sexual energy. So
Yeah, I have a
yeah,
very good
here's
vibrator too.
do
That
you.
I'm
Okay.
Oh yeah, wonderful vibrator. And my sexuality is very very spiritual. So, yeah, and it's also different. I
Mhm.
want to mention really quick. I know we're almost at time, but in Ayurveda, when men ejaculate versus when women orgasm, very different physiologically, very different physiological result. For men, it is depleting to have there is such a thing as too many orgasms for men. For women, no such thing. We do
Mhm.
not, we energize with orgasm.
Mhm.
But that glow goes both ways. That glow, by the way, is Ojas. You're talking about that
Mhm.
glow, that
Yeah.
vitality, like you can see it in the eyes and the aura of the person when they are getting really good sex. Yeah, that's Ojas. Libido, actually, your sexual appetite is a direct reflection of your health. That is a
Mhm.
reflection of good digestion,
Mhm.
good sleep,
Mhm.
management of time, energy, not only tending to the fire, but all of the elements within you, right? So the air, the
Yeah.
ether, the water, the earth, all of them. And this is why with Ayurveda, we will never run out of things to talk about. Same with sex, honestly. We'll never run out of way there. I have like literally in front of me, I have 40 questions that I didn't even get to ask because we could we just got to so many interesting other pockets of the conversation that just took on its own life force. But we might have like a what are those called? Like a speed round one day where I
Mhm.
can go down this because I have so many. There's so many layers, and it's such a fun thing to explore. We are all sexual beings, and we deserve to experience this. I think it comes down to this is part of the human experience. This is something that I really want for everybody to be able to cultivate within themselves, single or in partnership. Of course, I'm at a point now where I'm ready for partnership, but like even when I was single, I was able to satisfy myself, and my libido's just been off the charts my whole life because of my constitution, my prakriti. So that was just part of my nature always. Not everybody has that though. So in order to help people um even have that appetite to go into this work, it's going to require looking at the whole life. Because as you said, like, again, to take it back to that profound, simple sentence you said, how we're showing up to the bedroom is how we show up to life. I mean, come on. Like That's it. Like, that sums it all up. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Sacred's, you can make anything sacred, right? With consciousness, with intentionality, with ceremony. There's such a beautiful approach to life that it's that this is it. I mean, this is what you're talking about actually with sexuality is Ayurvedic. Just so you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, it
it is
makes sense.
Ayurvedic.
It's where it all begins and ends. It's how we came into this world. It's all of it. Yeah, it's the beginning of life.
It's the sustainer of life. It's our libido, our appetite for sex is also our appetite for creativity, building
Mhm,
businesses,
mhm,
building families, of course, but building anything.
mhm.
Like if there's a law that feels outdated or a program that no longer works, an app that needs an update, software, whatever, where
Mhm.
does that come from? Where does all the creativity, the brainstorming, the strategy, it's all coming from our sexual energy.
Yeah, creator
Hmm.
energy. And again, just what you said, you mentioned earlier, I think this is the way forward. Like the fact is with the statistically, like with what's happening and with, technology and AI and just human confusion around sexuality continuing to splinter, relationships and separate people and isolate people more and more, those who hear this call, and who are ready to go back to our original ways of relating to one another, and lose all of the old programming from pornography and all these other things as we've been talking about. This is going to be the future of families. This is the only way that future families are going to exist, and it's going to be the most pleasurable, fulfilling relationships that those of us who are here to walk this path, like it's going to be so fulfilling. And it's like what our ancestors have been waiting for, for us to step into the men and women we came here to be and to carry the torch and pass it on to the next generation so they can keep running with it. So here's to that.
That's a beautiful place to conclude. I'm going to cry because it's so beautiful. Ben, thank you. I mean, oh gosh, on behalf of all of us, your work, I'm just, again, I think I've said it 50 times. I don't know how many ways I have to get more creative with how I say it, but we are building something for the future generations. So much of what drives me as well is thinking about the babies that aren't mine that are alive right now
Yeah.
that are going to have a chance to really experience making love to life in every act, in every decision, with every breath. They can experience a different quality of life because we're building these structures, whether it be a podcast, a clinic, a men's group. It just keeps going, but we are here. We're holding the torch. We know what we have to do, and it's so much bigger than us. And I love that we're allies for one another. We are going to make it because we're supporting one another and we are aligned. So, this alignment that's happening, I think, in Austin with all of us that have been summoned here, this is just an incredible honeypot of conscious entrepreneurs who really not only want to make the world better for people that are alive right now, us, and yeah, like, of course, current generation, but gosh, if that's just so primal, isn't it, to be thinking about 7 generations ahead and the ripples that are being sent out to them right now. We are doing this for you guys. This is for you. And I know our ancestors made a lot of sacrifices so that we could be here. And we feel them. We feel them in our DNA. We feel them whether we're thinking about it on a daily basis or not. We are so incredibly, profoundly fortunate to be alive right now in this time. As complex as it is, as confusing as it is, as in many ways as disconnected as we are than we've ever been, it's also an incredible opportunity because we have consciousness. So we have this advanced technology and we have this consciousness. So let's just keep going, and cheers to everything you have shared and your work and our friendship. And I'll see you later tonight. we'll dance the night away.
Yeah, it's been great dropping in with you, Sasha. I appreciate all that you bring to the world, and thank you for allowing this work to travel through your channels. And may we all continue to keep the fire lit, spread the word. As we all move through these dark times in humanity. And all of the different ways that we support that. So I look forward to getting to know you more. And thanks to all the listeners out there.
Before you go, if you're ready to dive deeper into your healing, check the show notes to book a 45-minute exploratory call with me. If you mention you're a subscriber of the podcast, you'll get 50% off your initial intake consultation. A 2-hour deep dive, normally $400, now just $200. You'll also find exclusive 20% discounts on trusted Ayurvedic herbs from Kerala Ayurveda and Gary & Son. Just click the links to apply the savings automatically. Ojas Oasis is a labor of love, a podcast born from a deep desire to share the timeless wisdom of Ayurveda, Vedic ritual, and holistic healing with seekers around the world. Every episode is carefully crafted to bring you inspiring conversations, ancient insights, and practical tools for living a radiant, balanced life. If the show has nourished your spirit, helped you feel more seen, or guided you on your healing path, you can now support our work by buying us a coffee or golden milk. Your support goes directly toward producing high-quality episodes, keeping the podcast ad-light and mission-focused, expanding our offerings to serve you even more deeply, and whether it's a one-time cup or a monthly offering, we are so grateful. Click the link in the show notes to support the podcast and keep the wisdom flowing.